Hello dear students, how are you? I hope you are doing well. So today's lecture is the continuation of our previous lecture, water part 2. So at the end of this presentation, you will be able to understand what is water pollution, indicators of water pollution, criteria for quality of water, waterborne diseases, purification of water at small scale and purification of water at large scale. So what is water pollution? So water pollution is the contamination of water bodies like lakes, river, ocean and groundwater very oftenly by human activities. So it occurs when the pollutants like particles, chemicals and substances that makes the water contaminated are discharged directly or indirectly into the water bodies without enough treatment to get rid of harmful compounds. So here you can see the water pollution in this picture. So now there are two ways of water pollution. There are natural ways and artificial ways. So naturally, some dissolved gases, they are present in large amount in water. They pollute the water like carbon dioxide, nitrogen, ammonia, dissolved minerals, calcium salts, magnesium and sodium, suspended impurities like clay, mud and sand, microscopic plants and animals. These are all natural ways of water pollution. Then artificial ways are due to urbanization and industrialization. So sewage contains decomposable organic matter and pathogenic organisms, fertilizers and pesticides. They leads to water pollution, heat and radioactive substances, then metal salts and complex synthetic organic chemicals. They all cause artificial. They are all artificial ways of water pollution. So next comes the indicators of water pollution. So there are following four indicators of water pollution. So the amount of suspended particles, if they will increase, then means water is polluted. Then biological oxygen demand, this is the amount of dissolved oxygen that is needed by aerobic organisms to break down organic matter that is present in a water. So the greater the value of biological oxygen demand, it means the more rapidly oxygen will deplete and less oxygen will be available for aquatic life. So then concentration of chlorine, phosphate and nitrogen and absence of dissolved oxygen, these are all indicators of water pollution. Now criteria for quality of water. So water has its own physical, chemical and biological properties. So physical property, water should not be turbid, water should be clear, there should be no color in water, there should be no odor and it should be good in taste, and temperature should be appropriate and there should be clearance in water. So now the chemical qualities of water. So an acceptable pH of drinking water, that is 6.5 to 8.5, and chlorides, so the maximum permissible level is 600 mg per liter, and nitrates and about nitrites, so the recommended maximum limit for nitrites, that is 3 mg per liter. So ammonia natural level in ground and sulfur water is below 0.2 mg per dl. And next comes the dissolved oxygen, absorbed oxygen and hardness. So hardness, that is defined as the soap destroying power of water. So the consumer consider water hard if large quantity of soap is required to produce leather. So the causes of um, this hardness of water, that is uh, the presence of calcium and magnesium bicarbonates in water, calcium and magnesium sulfate, calcium chloride, magnesium chloride and calcium nitrate. So there are two types of hardness of water: temporary hardness and permanent hardness. So temporary hardness, that is due to presence of calcium and magnesium bicarbonates, and permanent hardness, that is due to presence of calcium, magnesium sulfates, chlorides and nitrates. So advantages of hardness of water, that there is low incidence of cardiovascular disease, it will prevent lead poisoning, and moderately hard level, that is fit for human use. But disadvantages are there is consumption of more soap and detergents, so that is unfit for washing purposes. and it is unfit for cooking, and it shorten the life of pipes as well. And GI, it also leads to GI disorder, gastrointestinal disorders. And temporary hardness can be removed by boiling, by addition of lime, and by addition of sodium carbonate in the water. So now biological aspects. So water should be free from bacteria, virus, protozoa, and helminths. But if in water there is E. coli, cloniform bacteria, streptococci, Clostridium perfringens, then it means that there is a recent fecal contamination of water. So now comes the waterborne diseases. These are the diseases that are caused by ingestion of water that is contaminated by human or animal feces or urine. So which contain pathogenic microorganism, protozoa, bacteria, virus, and algae. So following are the diseases that are caused by protozoa: Acanthamoeba keratitis, amoebiasis, cryptosporidiosis, cyclosporiasis, jordiasis, and naegleria. These are all waterborne diseases that are caused by protozoa. So amoeba keratitis, that is a rare disease amoeba that invades the cornea of the eye, as you can see in this picture, and it causes permanent visual impairment or blindness, or it also affects the skin and central nervous system of the human being. And amoebiasis or amoebic dysentery, that is caused by Entamoeba histolytica. So the symptoms are abdominal pain, diarrhea, and bloody diarrhea. So complications includes inflammation and ulceration of the colon with tissue death and perforation, and which may results in peritonitis. And anemia due to loss of blood also occurs in amoebiasis. So next disease, that is cryptosporidiosis. So that is caused by Cryptosporidium protozoa, and it is found in water, food, soil, and on surfaces or dirty hands that have been contaminated with feces of human or animal that is infected with this parasite. So in cryptosporidiosis there is watery diarrhea, and this watery diarrhea will cause dehydration and death in the client. Then cyclosporiasis, that is an intestinal illness that is caused by Cyclospora catinensis, and it is caused by consumption of food and water that is contaminated with this parasite. So symptoms include watery diarrhea, loss of appetite, weight loss, cramping, bloating, flatulence, nausea, and fatigue. So next, jordiasis. Jordiasis is an infection of small intestine that is caused by Giardia lamblia. So symptoms include diarrhea, abdominal discomfort, bloating, and flatulence. Then naegleria. Naegleria, this is also called brain eating amoeba. So that is commonly found in freshwater lakes, and exposure occur during swimming and other water sports. So Naegleria, it travels up to the nose and then to the brain, and then it causes severe damage to the brain. So most people who have Naegleria infection, they will die within a week. So a famous Nathwa Zulfikar Ali Hussaini was passed away because of this Naegleria in Karachi. So next, waterborne diseases that are caused by bacteria, they are botulism, campylobacteriosis, cholera, dysentery, legionellosis, leptospirosis, typhoid fever, and vibrio illness. So botulism, that is caused by Clostridium botulinum. So it will enter an open wound from a contaminated water source, and it will enter in the gastrointestinal tract through consumption of contaminated water. So the symptoms include dry mouth, blur, double vision, difficulty in swallowing, there is muscle weakness, difficulty in breathing, slurred speech, vomiting, and sometimes diarrhea. So death is usually caused by respiratory failure in these patients who are having botulism. Then Campylobacterium jejuni is a causative agent of this disease. So in this disease there is a bloody diarrhea or dysentery, there is cramp, fever and pain. So next comes cholera. So cholera is caused by Vibrio cholera, and in this there is watery diarrhea that leads to dehydration and even death if it is untreated. Then dysentery is caused by number of species like Shigella and Salmonella, but most commonly Shigella dysentery. So in dysentery there is frequent passage of feces with blood or mucus, and in some cases vomiting of blood. Then legionellosis, this is also a disease that is caused by legionella bacteria, and it will lead to pneumonia. And leptospirosis, that is caused by Leptospora enterogen, and the organism that is carried by many animals and lives in their kidneys, so it's end up in soil and water through their urine. So sign and symptoms of leptospirosis include headache, muscle pain, and then bleeding from the lungs or meningitis. Next, typhoid that is caused by bacteria Salmonella typhi, and in typhoid there is fever, diarrhea, vomiting, and it can be fatal, and it is most prevalent in places where hand washing is less frequent. So then Vibrio illness and vibriosis, that is an illness that is result from eating contaminated food such as raw or undercooked shellfish from water that contains the bacteria. So exposing a wound to contaminated water can cause Vibrio infection of the skin, as you can see in this picture. This is the Vibrio infection of the skin. So next are the waterborne diseases that are caused by the virus, hepatitis A and E, gastroenteritis and poliomyelitis. So hepatitis A and B, this is an inflammatory disease of the liver, and it is caused by hepatitis A virus and hepatitis E virus. So signs symptoms include jaundice, that means yellowish discoloration of sclera and skin. There is anorexia, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, and irritated skin lesions. Next disease, that is gastroenteritis, that is inflammation of gastrointestinal tract, that includes stomach and intestine both. So symptoms include diarrhea, vomiting, and abdominal pain. Next come the poliomyelitis. Poliomyelitis is a contagious disease that is caused by poliovirus, and it attacks the nervous system of the human being, and it will invade the nervous system and of the human being and cause paralysis. Then parasitic, the waterborne diseases that are caused by parasitic worms, dracunculiasis, that is a disease that is caused by a worm like parasite, resulting in painful skin lesions when the worms emerge from the skin. As you can see in this picture, this worm that is emerged from the skin. So when the human drink or swallow contaminated water, they can get this infection. So fever and painful lesions usually on the leg and legs and feet are present. So next comes the water purification. So there are we will discuss about two methods of water purification: small scale water purification and large scale water purification. So on small scale or household water purification, we boil the water. We use chemical disinfectants like bleaching powder, chlorine solution, uh, high test hypochlorite, chlorine tablets, iodine, potassium permanganate, and we used household filtrations and ultraviolet radiation and reverse osmosis system. These are all methods of water purification at small scale. So we boil the water for 10 to 20 minutes. It will kill the bacteria, spores, cyst and ova. It will remove the temporary hardness of water, and taste can be altered, but it should be stored in same container where you have boiled this water. Then chemicals that are used for disinfection, they are bleaching powders. So bleaching powder, that is white amorphous powder, and if freshly prepared, then it contains 33% available chlorine. So it is unstable, means on exposure to air, light or moisture it lose its chlorine content. So it should be stored in dark, cool, dry place in a closed container. So next, after bleaching powder, use chlorine solution. So chlorine solution, that is prepared from bleaching powder. If we want to attain 5% solution of chlorine, then we will mix 4 kg of bleaching powder with 25% available chlorine. We will mix it in 20 liters of water, so it will give us 5% solution of chlorine. Then we can use this 5% solution of chlorine uh, for chemical disinfection of water. So then high test hypochlorites. This is white powder and contain a greater concentration of chlorine than ordinary bleaching powder, and it is more stable and it is used for purification of water and small cells. Then chlorine tablets, they are used 0.5 gram. Single tablet of 0.5 gram is sufficient to disinfect 20 liters of water. So they are used in camps and they are used in during traveling, and they are good but they are costly. So then iodine is used in emergency disinfection of water. We use iodine. So 2 drops of 2% ethanol solution of iodine is sufficient for 1 liter of water. So the contact time should be 20 to 30 minutes. After 20 to 30 minutes, your water will be clean, will be purified, and it has high cost. So potassium permanganate, we are no longer using this one, and because it change color, smell and taste of water. Next comes at household level. After boiling, we have discussed about chemical disinfection. Now comes the filter. So there are different types of filters we are using at home for filtration purposes. There are ceramic filters, Pasteur Chamberlain filters, then Berkey filters and Katadyn filters. So here are these: the ceramic filter, Katadyn and Berkey filter. These are all types of filters that we are using at home. So next comes the ultraviolet radiation. So this is the most effective methods of disinfecting bacteria from water. So ultraviolet radiation, they penetrate harmful pathogens in water and destroy them by attacking their DNAs. So after ultraviolet radiation, we use reverse osmosis. This is a treatment process that removes the contaminants from water by using pressure to force water molecules through a semi-permeable membrane. So during this process, the contaminants are filtered out and flushed away, leaving clean, delicious drinking water. So we are using these filters. As you can see in this picture, these are all reverse osmosis filters we are using for household purification. So next comes the purification of water at large scale. So at large scale, mainly we are using these 4 processes. Number 1, we store the water, then we sediment the water, then we use water filters. They are so slow sand filters and rapid sand filters are there. Then we disinfect. After filtration, we disinfect the water by using chlorine, ozone, other agents or membrane processes. So now what is storage at large scale? We store the water. This is in a natural or artificial reservoir. So what are the effects of this storage? So the physical effects of storage is due to gravity. 90% suspended impurities, they will settle down in one day. And in chemical effects will be the aerobic bacteria that are present. They will oxidize the organic matter and decrease ammonia and rise nitrates. So the in biological process, only 10% bacteria remains at the end of 1 week of storage. So optimum period for storage that is required is of 2 weeks. Then sedimentation. So sedimentation is a physical water treatment process using gravity to remove suspended solids from water. So sedimentation is accomplished by decreasing the velocity of water to a point which the particles will no longer remain in suspension. So when the velocity no longer supports the particles, so gravity uh, will remove them from the water flow. So sedimentation, that is hastened by addition of chemicals, coagulant, like if we add aluminium sulfate, then there will be coagulation and they will settle down at the bottom. So those could be 35 mg per liter. So after storage there will be sedimentation of water at large scale. Then we will filter water. This stored and sedimented water will be filtered then. So in filtration, 98 to 99% bacteria and impurities will removed. So there are mainly two types of filters: slow sand or biological filters. They are slow, and rapid and mechanical filters, they will do this filtration rapidly. So slow sand filters are also called biological filters. They were first used in 19th century in Scotland. So in slow sand filters or biological filters, basically there is a filter box, then there is supernatant water, then sand bed and under drainage system, and filter control valves are present there. So filter box, that is an open box with 2.5 to 4 meter depth. The walls of this filter box is made up of bricks. Here you can see this one, this is the box. So next, supernatant water, depth should be 1 to 1.5 meter. So this is the supernatant water. This is the supernatant water. Then the sand bed 1.2 meter, and then gravel 0.30 meter, and filter bottom 0.16. So this is the sand bed, and then these are the control wells. So slow sand filters, they work through the formation of gelatinous layer or biofilm that is called hypogel layer or Skermetsdek in the top of the few millimeters of the fine sand layer. So this biofilm is formed in the first 10 to 20 days of operation, and it consists of bacteria, fungi, protozoa and range of other aquatic insects larvae. So the surface biofilm is the layer that provides effective purification in potable water treatment. So the underlying sand provide the support medium for this biological treatment layer. So as water passes through this biological layer, particles of foreign matters, they are trapped in this mucilaginous matter, and soluble organic material is absorbed. So the contaminants are metabolized by the bacteria, fungi and protozoa. So this is all about the slow sand filter. So here this is supernatant water, then this one is a biological layer, then sand bag, this is sand bed oil. So what are the advantages? This is simple to construct, this is cheaper, and quality of water is very high. So total bacterial count reduced to 99.9 to 99.99% with E. coli. So the next filter is rapid sand filter, that was first used in 1885 in USA. So there are two types of rapid sand filter: gravity type and pressure type. So in following are the steps in rapid sand filter. Rapid sand filter, first we will add alum in the water, that is the coagulation process. Then there is rapid mixing, there is mixing chamber. Then there is flocculation. In flocculation there is slow stirring of water by paddles, and in this what happens, flocculant precipitate of aluminium hydroxide, they will entangle all the uh, particles, suspended materials with bacteria, they will entangle all these. So in sedimentation, these all these particles, they will settle down at the base. So after sedimentation, we will filter this water. So filtration can be done through a filter bed that have sand and gravels. So this is the flow diagram for rapid sand filter plant. So first there is mixing of alum, then there is flocculation. They will entangle all suspended impurities and all bacteria. Then there is sedimentation. They will settle down at the base. Then we will filter them with sand and gravels, and then we have clear water. Then we will use chlorination and other processes, and then this water will be used for consumption purposes. So advantages of rapid sand filter: rapid sand filter can deal with raw water directly, no preliminary storage is needed, the filter bed occupy less space, the filtration is rapid, like 40 to 50 times than that of slow sand filter, and the washing of the filter is easy and there is more flexibility in operation. So at large scale, first we stored the water, we have stored the water, then there was sedimentation, then after sedimentation we have filtered the water, then after filtration there was a rapid sand filter and slow sand filtration, then there is disinfection of water. So now disinfection of water can be done through chlorine gas, through chloramine, or through high test hypochlorite. So in chlorination they will kill pathogenic bacteria, and they will oxidize iron, manganese and hydrogen sulfide. They will reduce taste and odor, and they control algae as well. Then ozonation, that is a chemical water treatment technique that is based on infusion of ozone in the water. Ozone is a gas that is composed of three oxygen atoms. So which is one of the most powerful oxidizing agent. So it removes undesirable color, odor, taste, and organic matter. It destroys the viruses, so there is no residual effects. So it can be used with in combination with chlorination, but the cost is very high. So this is all about today's lecture. So if you have any question, then you can ask. Thank you.